Did you know that air travel is the safest mode of transport by record? Yes, it is. But you see, this safety record did not come by magic. Authorities that regulate flying activities have approved certain procedures or methods that flights must follow. So when you travel from Accra to Kumasi by flight, it follows this procedure. I am Yadejo Gospel and this is No Engineering. In this episode, we are talking about the stages of flight. But before, subscribe and share. Thank you. Flying is an activity that may turn out being catastrophic if not done well. In the case of commercial flight operations, airplanes undergo certain stages or phases to ensure safety. And these stages are the pre-departure stage, pushback and taxi stage, the takeoff stage, climb stage, the cruise stage, the descent stage, the approach stage, the touchdown stage, and finally, the taxi-in stage. So let's delve into each stage and know what goes on there. And we shall start with the pre-departure stage. The pre-departure stage is the preparation time for the flight. Pilots will go around the aircraft for visual inspection. They check for abnormalities such as oil leakage, damaged control surfaces, tire wears, and etc. When all that is checked, they also check to make sure the aircraft is loaded with fuel. Then they program all computers in the flight deck according to the flight plan. At the same time, the cabin crew check their emergency equipment and also make sure all catering supplies are on board. Then they conduct their final security check before passengers are allowed to come on board. The next stage is the pushback and taxi-off stage. When the aircraft is boarded with passengers and loaded with cargo with all doors closed, the pilot seeks clearance from the control tower to taxi off. The aircraft is then pushed back with a pushback track. We shall talk about them in a different video. When the aircraft is cleared to move under its own power, the pushback track is detached and the aircraft moves slowly to the runway where it will take off. This slow movement is what we term taxiing. The third stage is the takeoff stage. On the runway, the pilot seeks clearance to take off. When they are cleared to take off, the pilot accelerates to a flying speed. Soon the aircraft gets airborne and the landing gears are retracted to minimize drag. The fourth stage in our flight is the climb stage. This period usually takes between 5 minutes to 10 minutes depending on the kind of aircraft and the destination. This is the time that the aircraft flies high to its maximum altitude during the flight. The fifth stage of the flight, this is where some people usually enjoy the flight, is the cruise stage. This is where most of the flight takes place. At this stage, anyone could be allowed to take off his or her seat belt. Even the pilots can activate the autopilot to allow the aircraft fly itself. It is also the stage where serving of food is usually done during the flight. We are finally at the sixth stage of the flight, and this stage is the descent stage. This happens about 20 minutes prior to touchdown. This has to do with the decrease in altitude from the cruise altitude to start approach. At this stage, everyone, including crew members, are to sit down and fasten their seat belts. The seventh part of the flight, which is driving us closer to our destination, is the approach stage. At this stage, the aircraft is made ready to land with clearance from the air control tower. The aircraft speed is reduced and the landing gears are released and should be in line with the runway meant for the aircraft to touch down. Our eighth stage of the flight is landing. This is a critical stage in a flight because the aircraft speed has to be reduced for it to be able to touch down. At this stage, the aircraft is allowed to deploy lift dampers to spoil the lift components, and the wheel brakes are deployed and reverse engine thrust is activated. All these are to reduce the aircraft speed to a taxi speed. Our final stage of the flight is a taxi-in stage. This is the slow movement of the aircraft to the arrival bay. Then at this point, we can say a successful flight has been achieved. But we should note that at each point of the flight, from start to finish, air traffic controllers at various locations, depending on where the flight gets to, monitor the movement of the flight. I think this is the main reason why air travel is one of the safest modes of transport. Well, now I believe you've learned something. At least you know the various stages of flight. Thank you very much for watching the video. Until we meet again, bye.